For those who don't know, Sean Stikowski is a senior analyst um, at the Pennsylvania State Police. He works in the Pennsylvania Crime Intelligence Center, known as the PACIC, P-A-C-I-C, which is the Pennsylvania Fusion Center. Sean's part of a team that monitors cyber and physical threats to Pennsylvania government agencies and also critical infrastructure across the Commonwealth. Sean monitors potential threats and trends to share relevant information with the private sector organizations for situational awareness. His professional education is in criminal justice. He also experienced in the cyber education, system assembly and troubleshooting. Sean also regularly attends and briefs the SICE working group, which meets every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And it's funny, Sean, how you get to know people, but you've never met, right? It's kind of
exactly.
I think it's the first time you and I have actually visually met, maybe. So let me jump in. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right, and anyway, I just to give people some backdrop here. I attended a briefing in Pennsylvania virtually, and Sean gave a brief of what he's going to talk about today, and I immediately was, wow, this is impressive. It's practical, and it's something I think you kept saying a couple of that. These simple tactics can reduce your cybersecurity threat. I don't want to say how much, but it's a lot. Okay. And I thought everybody needs to hear that. So Sean, thanks for coming on here. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Hey, not a problem. You built me up pretty well. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to turn my camera off because if I keep it on, you're going to see me looking at all kinds of different things. I got a lot of things open and a couple of different computers running. I'm going to pull information from all of them.
Okay.
So stand by for 1 sec. All right, camera's off, but you can still hear me, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
I'll share my screen, which basically has the session, your name, and the title. So go right ahead.
Well, hold on. I have the PowerPoint ready to go.
Oh, all right, fine. There we go.
All right, let's see here. We're going to share this one. And how's that looking?
Very good.
Excellent. All right, so let's start. Tom introduced me exceptionally well. So my name is Sean Stikowski. I work at the Pennsylvania State Police, and everything else that he said was the truth. So today, we're going to talk about current cyber threats. We're going to talk about cyber threats that you might see towards your organization. These threats, we're talking about things that have happened in the past few months. Keep in mind, a lot of things have changed. COVID sent people home, a lot of teleworking going on, homeschooling going on. All of this is done on systems, computer systems that may not be completely cyber secure. All of these things, I think Tripp mentioned a very broad attack surface. All of these things, COVID, homeschooling, teleworking, also tend to increase the attack surface for a hacker. It gives them an incredible amount of options to get into different systems. And so starting at the top, ransomware. It remains the most prevalent cyber attack. It's the most obvious. It does considerable damage. It gathers the biggest news media. And originally, it was a product of large hacking groups, government-backed hacking groups. Historically, it had more of a political motive, more or less nation states paying cyber threat groups to steal information or hack government. However, that's changed in the past, say, year, 2 years or so, where attackers are moving more towards making money and or damaging a business. So more recently, let me see here, more recently damaging a business. However, talking about ransomware, everyone talks about it, you see it in the newspapers, this place or that place got hit with ransomware, but it doesn't really explain the underlying process of how that actually happened. So what we're going to do is expand on it a little bit. Okay, so hacking does not happen like this picture is showing. Um, doesn't happen like in the movies. It doesn't happen with all those floating characters like in the Matrix. Um, uh, it's not a computer with a password box where somebody's sitting in front of it manually typing in a password. All of that is sensationalism. It makes a good movie. I would watch that movie. It's visually entertaining, but it's not how real hacking happens. And so this one is actually how real hacking happens. This is running a search for public IP addresses with certain open ports for an attacker to access. Tripp touched on this briefly. He mentioned setting up a honeypot, and he noticed in a matter of minutes to hours, he had a coordinated attack. This would be one of the programs an attacker would use to search for, find, and attempt to access that system that Tripp's company would have set up. Going back in time, pop quiz. Can anyone tell me what 1983 movie this is from? I'll give you a clue. The character was looking for a new computer game and stumbled upon global thermonuclear war. So hopefully a certain generation who's listening to my presentation right now,
great movie.
thank you, Tom, is shouting at the screen and saying, war games, war games.
Andrew, I can't see his last, Andrew Penn, just recognize that, it's funny.
Excellent. So keep in mind, the point of this is this movie was 1983. And in 1983, he set up a computer to dial every number in a certain area code. The only difference between back then and what hackers are currently doing now is they switched out telephone numbers for IP addresses. But the idea is the same. They literally contact a certain number to see if they can gain access, to see what kind of screen shows up, if it's a password screen, if it's a blank page, if it says inaccessible, something like that. Stand by, there we go. I'm having a bit of a delay on my computer here. So today we're going to be talking about two main topics. We're going to talk about cyber attack methods, and we're going to talk about cyber surveillance. These are the two things that hackers have used, especially in recent months. We're talking within the past 2 to 3 months that they used to develop software and mindsets, ideas to get into target agencies and organizations. To do this, hackers are revisiting old cyber attack methods, and they're using cyber surveillance to come up with the best plan of action. If they're looking at an organization that is highly structured and highly protected, their idea to hack that organization is going to change compared to a smaller third-party contractor organization. So another older cyber attack technique, we're seeing more phishing emails, but the addition is it has a malicious email attachment, which is also password protected. Now, these were very popular like 5 to 10 years ago. They went out of favor though, due to easy email filter abilities. Your IT department can just say, no, we're gonna filter this out. And that helped a lot. But new phishing emails, they expand on this attachment or on this attack by compressing the attachment and then password protecting the document. So the majority of email filters can't see into that document. So we're going to start with this simple package delivery confirmation email. It's an important thing to realize. A hacker can easily change the quote package delivery email to anything else. Could be resume email. It could be something dealing with COVID vaccine. More or less whatever the current threat is, or whatever the current target is that the attacker is imitating or targeting. So we'll take a closer look at this attachment. Oh man, there we go. Take a closer look at this attachment. In this example, the email is titled info.zip, In the same way, it could be titled anything. Very important, it's now password protected, and it does two things. So it allows that attachment to circumvent email filters, and also it adds to the social engineering. It makes the attachment seem more important. It looks more professional. 10 years ago, less people knew about malicious email attachments, so there weren't a lot of warnings about it. My previous employers didn't warn me or any of the other workers about things like this. But now we're seeing the same idea. Email attachments evolved into password protected documents. And those documents then go on to contain a malicious macro, which is now what we're getting into. So stay with me here. I know this is getting a little bit deep, but I'm going to wrap it into a great summary here. So malicious macro. Inside the zip file is a Word document with a macro. Macro is a very short script. It tells your computer to connect to some website. It is incredibly small. It is incredibly quick to run as well. The website that it would point your computer to would be a hacker-controlled website, a malicious website, and that's where information would be sent, either the IP address of your computer, or it would make your computer download a couple of other different programs. Notice this warning actually indicates that the document was created on an older version of Word. This is an example of a legacy software vulnerability. And if you're using an older version of Word, you may not get this warning. So let's say you're still using like Word 2007. Back then, these attacks either didn't exist or didn't have any corresponding warnings in Word. Current Word, like Word 365 or Word 2016, would identify this and then show the warning. So cyber surveillance. We're going to focus a bit on incidents exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. That's a good indication of what hackers are doing and what kind of surveillance they're watching for. So hackers are very keen on watching for and using zero-day vulnerabilities. And so what is this? This is a default configuration in a system or a software glitch that was just discovered. Point is, it's something that has been known for 0 days. It's brand new. Well, a hacker looks at this glitch and they develop a software, a malware tool to exploit this vulnerability. So the 0-day vulnerabilities, they include glitches, especially in legacy software, like old versions of Word or old operating systems. A kind of recent vulnerability, this might have been about 6 months back or so. Vulnerability was called Zero Logon. And this was a big software vulnerability. Quick summary was it allowed a hacker to access Microsoft Windows Domain Controller, which is a server for a company. It allowed the hacker to access using a password that was all zeros. And the vulnerability said that one time in 256 attempts, all zeros would be the correct password and it would let the hacker in. This is an incredible vulnerability. That information was released August of 2020, and hackers began using that within the same month. So we're talking like within a few weeks, they were already exploiting that. Also, major data breaches and ransomware attacks, they don't happen over the course of a few minutes. They install malware to collect data over time. Typically, it's a planned approach. Target organization is identified. The targets a lot of times have a large public presence. They hold sensitive information, and there's a large user base that depends on their operation. So 2 recent examples, again, these are purely for example. A French shipping company, I can't pronounce the name, the initials are CMA, CGM. They got hit with ransomware in September of 2020. And then a GPS company that you might have heard of, little GPS company named Garmin, they got hit with a very intricate ransomware in July of 2020. So CMA and Garvin, these attacks didn't only affect the companies and the computers themselves, but they affected all of the users, the incredibly large user base that depended on both of those. Both of these attacks, they started with very quiet malware installations, and they went unnoticed. CMA, it's a global shipping company, so they actually tracked the infection back to an office in China. And when the malware was installed, it categorized the system, and it logged the location of different data. And then that's all it did. It just sat around. It took months before an actual infection and ransomware attack carried out. And so typically, ransomware is deployed as the final step rather than being the first step. And then being able to deal with it afterward. All of your data is compromised way before the ransomware is actually activated. So that moves us into legacy hardware vulnerabilities. So legacy hardware poses some unique challenges. 10 years ago, manufacturers weren't as concerned with security as they are today. They couldn't foresee the need to change passwords or use data encryption. The manufacturer of that 10-year-old hardware, they might not have even offered software updates and paths to upgrade the hardware. And then lastly, when that hardware has reached its end of life, the manufacturer actually stops monitoring for new zero-day vulnerabilities. And so because nobody is watching for that, if a vulnerability is discovered, the organization who is still using that legacy hardware is kind of out of luck, and then it opens another vulnerability. So we have legacy hardware, and then we also have legacy software vulnerabilities. Legacy software, it shares similar end-of-life vulnerabilities. Software companies design a product to provide updates over a set period of time. End of life can be 3 to 5 years. There's always exceptions. Windows 7 went a bit longer than that. Apple devices typically have a 5-year update cycle and end of life cycle. So for 5 years, you'll receive software updates for the iPhone. On the other hand, Android devices typically have system upgrades for 2 years and then software updates afterward for a 3rd year, so 3 years total. But point is, at some point in time, the hardware and the software become obsolete. So software, I touched on Windows 7 a little bit ago. Software that still relies on Windows 7, it poses a large legacy software vulnerability. Microsoft extended support for Windows 7 a few times, but the majority of users, Windows 7 has reached end of life January 14 of 2020. So literally a year and 2 weeks ago. That time frame is an incredibly long time frame for potential software vulnerabilities and zero-day vulnerabilities to be discovered and then be unable to be patched. So all of that background, we're going to move into some mitigation ideas for frontline workers. This is coming into the part of the presentation that I really enjoy. So frontline workers, they are the first step against phishing attacks. A hacker's main goal is to access a protected system. And so one of the easiest ways to do this is steal your login credentials, usernames and passwords. So the usernames are typically easy because it's your email address, which means now they only have to figure out your password. So that means the best security for a frontline worker starts with a strong password. Just a strong password in and of itself prevents brute force attacks. Brute force attacks are a hacker using a set list of common passwords. Examples are password 123, anything like that, a series of numbers, QWERTY, That's a popular password. And so they attempt a brute force password attack by running within a matter of milliseconds hundreds of thousands of potential passwords to see if one of them actually allows them to gain access, because it just happens to be your easy and default password. So let's talk about passwords. We'll see how secure everyone is. A couple of questions. Does your password have numbers? Does it have capitals? And does it have symbols? If you answered yes to all three of those, that's all good. Those are the makings of a strong password. Two more questions though. Does your password use a word from the English language? And normally when I do these trainings in person, I get a lot of people either smiling or they hang their head a little bit lower, and that shows me, yeah, they do use a word from the English language. And the last question that catches 99% of the people who listen to my trainings. Have you ever used a form of that password anywhere else? So this is a major security hole. Password reuse. It's a major problem, and it also makes it easier for hackers. If they get your password from a previous cyber breach, maybe you used a password on a simple site, a site that doesn't have a lot of security protection or encryption, things like that. If they get your password from there and you use that same password on all of your other accounts, they now have the ability to also access those other accounts. So let's see here, perfect example. A vendor for a hospital in Western Pennsylvania was compromised earlier in 2020 with a ransomware attack. And the hacker targeted the hospital, not directly, but targeted through a vendor. And the vendor, it presented slightly lower security standards because they didn't have the money to devote to as robust IT as the hospital did. So when I was given this training before, I also got called out on what constitutes a strong password. I probably said it 5 times. So somebody asked a question, well, hey, can you give us an example exactly of what is a strong password? And I said, absolutely. So strong passwords, we're going to run through this and show you the progression to develop a very good password. Okay, so we're going to start with strawberry. Easy password, it has no capitals, has no numbers, it's very basic. It's also a word from the English language. A password like that can be cracked in a matter of seconds. So slightly stronger, you see I add a capital S and numbers, but the English word is still there. So even stronger than that, changing out some characters for symbols and characters for numbers makes it a little bit stronger still. However, an even better option is what is known as passphrases. And it's where a lot of different companies are going. They will actually negate a password that uses an English language word. They'll force you to use a passphrase. So since we're talking about strawberries, a red strawberry is yummy, but a green one is bitter. When you transfer that, or when you take the first letter of each of those words, it becomes this very strong password down at the bottom. It is 12 or so characters long. And if you remember the passphrase, you just type in the first letter of every word as you're typing in your password. Don't forget the exclamation point. And now you have an extremely strong password. So this is a perfect example of something that a frontline worker can use at work, but also can take home, use on their email accounts, use on other accounts. A passphrase lets you keep something in mind. And so when you look at your device, your phone or your work computer, you'll remember that, oh, for the work computer, I talk about strawberries. And then you remember your passphrase. To harden it even more, we get into multi-factor authorization. It's more or less like having 2 passwords. And so you would enter your username, enter your password, and then you would receive another prompt or another step of security that you would have to authorize. So that might be a text message with a PIN number to it, might be an automated telephone call where you have to press a button, or it might be an email code. A lot of larger organizations are moving to things like that. And then when you combine passphrases and MFA, you take care of 99% of any kind of brute force, straightforward cyber password attack. Hopefully everybody picked that up. If not, we have questions at the end. So moving on. Okay, maybe I told you all about the password and you're like, well, you know, I don't really want to change mine. I think it's plenty secure. So this website, nordpass.com, they release every year the top 200 most common passwords of each year. The good thing about this website is it doesn't just tell you the passwords. It also tells you a bunch of other nice little details about them. It tells you the percentage of people who actually used all of these common passwords. It tells you the time frame of how long it would take a hacker to breach your account. That's protected by these passwords, these common passwords. And then a bunch of other different info. And then it also helps you to develop and or look at other good password protection schemes. So taking a run over there, when you go there, you can run searches for your current password, or you can just see a list of the common passwords to see if your password is in there. It gives you common passwords. It gives you password mistakes. Let's see here.
Sean, we got about 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So no problem. Keep this in mind. Let me skip a few slides forward. Two, the next step is knowing what kind of attacks you're going to hit or you're going to get hit with. So learning what they look like is a good starting point for training. Email phishing tests. I just pulled 2 of these from a quick search. Yeah, there are plenty more if you do a search, but these will kind of break the ice to see how knowledgeable or how much more training is needed for any kind of frontline workers. Right after that, we also have a government resource, CISA.gov, and about 6 days ago, this is fresh, hot off the press, they released this new campaign, Reduce the Risk of Ransomware. And so when you go to the website, it gives you a bunch of different links, including these resources shown below. And mitigation for IT departments, just a quick summary of the passwords, deploy software updates, and things that I had previously discussed. Also, more mitigation, review antivirus, and consider adding some endpoint protection platforms, which looks at the activities of a hacker if they do get into your system. So it detects things that look suspicious and stops them before they can have any more effect on your system. And with that, I am at the end. So I want to thank you for listening. And if we have time for some questions, I can gladly entertain them.
Sean, one comment we just got. Can you put those links in the chat and we'll share those out?
Yep.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
And I know you probably had to get in a little more to get a little more detail. I apologize for that.
Hey, that's okay.
We'll recircle back because this is a never-ending topic, right? So
yep,
if you
definitely,
if you would share that, please. Let me just a couple closing comments here. Please, for tomorrow, day 3, we'll have 3 separate links for 3 separate tracks. You can go, if you go to ahc2021.com, I put it in the chat here. You can start there and navigate to any track you want tomorrow. Okay, it'll be up on the website. Also, I want to inform people about our all access pass. We have, we'll make this available. It's a resource for planning, for research, and all kinds of things. The private sector spent thousands of dollars putting this together. So it's offered to you guys. It'll be one simple offer that includes the video edited from every session, the audio edited from every session, a PDF of the transcripts edited for every session. We remove out any sensitive information or reference like that. And then a speaker deep dive PDF. So fantastic capability. It kind of lives on beyond the event. we encourage you to do that. You can access and more information on that at ahc2021.com. And I put a note in the chat. We're going to have a virtual reception, which starts now. If you'd like to join us, we're going to disconnect this track and you'll see the link. Go to AHC 2021 and click on track 1, and that's where the reception is going to be. So, Sean, thank you. I appreciate it so much, taking the time to do this late in the day. So please join us for the reception if you can. So I will, that'll conclude this session, folks. We'll move over to track 1. The link is in the chat. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.